Welcome to Fans of the Forge, where we are recapping.
Yes.
Season 6, Episode 14, the Nagamaki.
Okay.
Our guys this week. Oh, by the way, it's just myself and Chris.
Oh, yes. Teresa is up at camp. She's going to be there for a while.
Yeah.
Most of the summer. We may try to coordinate some videos with her when she is home on her days off. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes.
So we apologize in advance for our faces.
Yeah, there's not much you can do about
Yep.
that. Anyway.
All right. So the guys on this episode, we have Steve Wayne, full-time Smith, 4 years of experience.
40 years? Did you say 40?
I did say 40.
Oh, sorry, my bad. I thought you said 4.
No.
My bad.
We have Braxton Cox, full-time Smith with 8 years of experience. Kyle Reese, part-time Smith, no years mentioned.
Oh, yeah. So it was another one of those situations where it just said part-time bladesmith, and they didn't put a year number at all.
So I
Makes
guess
you a little nervous.
he just started maybe a month ago. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
And then we have Jake Sewell, part-time Smith with 16 years of experience. So moving on to round one. Interesting setup. It's gym themed.
Yeah.
So they have some weight equipment there, and these guys are tasked with making a blade. They have to combine one piece of hardenable steel with one piece of mild steel in a style of their choosing from a set of gym equipment. The blade must be between 11 and 14 inches and not to exceed 22 inches overall length.
Okay. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's a neat one.
It's I mean, that's a cool idea. A little curveball there.
Yeah. And it's always nice to see how they, what they figure out to take from those things. And it was a good concept.
Yeah. So for Steve, he decides to go for our camp knife / buoy. He's forging a blade and a tang out of the barbell steel, and we'll worry about the mild steel later. Doug is questioning the length of the blade. He's not sure if it's 11 inches.
If they show a clip of somebody questioning the length of the blade,
it's usually trouble.
It's a bad thing.
Yeah. And then, he did a quench and it looked good.
Yep.
Moving on to Braxton, he was going for a drop point camp knife. I try to keep in mind what the gym equipment is used for is under stress.
The metal itself.
The metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's not bad. I don't think really, though, it's under that much stress.
For the stuff that it was part of.
I mean, no, it's not like a leaf spring on a car. Like, that's a lot of stress. This stuff.
How were those Bowflexes constructed? Did they have steel? It looked like.
Well,
what was that material that was doing the flexing?
The power rods.
Yeah.
I don't know what those are made out of. Like maybe some weird graphite compound or something. That's my guess.
I wonder if you could make a knife out of those.
I don't know. If you can find a junk one, we can cut one apart maybe. And then he used straight barbell and twisted bar to make a sanmai. He was looking good, then ground a blade before quenching. However, it warped. So he goes for a second quench. It still has a warp after that. So he goes for a third quench. Oof. And hey, what do you know? He ended up going for 4 quenches.
Oh, boy.
That's a lot of quenching.
I don't know. Is it, though? They make it seem like it is. And then apparently, a topic of conversation that we heard kind of a little bit at Blade Show was that like there's people talking about a triple quench as being better than a single quench for hardening your blade, and I don't even know what that is.
I don't know about that because anytime on the show you hear that
they freak out.
That's not good because it just affects the grain structure.
Right.
That's not good. So anyhow, moving on to Kyle. He was going for a straight back sax. He has experience using gym equipment for making a blade. Go figure.
Wow. How useful that is.
Yeah. And he was using steel from the leg curl machine, if you will. And he was getting the blade shaped out first and then adding the mild steel to the handle area. So moving on to Jake, he's going for a sax. And he's using the barbell steel and mild steel frame to make a sanmai. He was moving right along until he finds delaminations along the spine of his blade. And quench looked good. Judges comment on how thin and narrow it is, however.
Okay.
Keep that noted. So for judging, Steve, well, his cutting edge seemed to be about 10.5 inches.
That's a problem.
That's a problem. For Braxton, it was a really handsome knife. There was some concern about the hardness. Mm-hmm. For Kyle, Ben notes a delamination where the mild steel meets the hardened steel. Otherwise, it's looking good. And for Jake, it's really light and thin. There's a bit of a warp near the tang and whispers of wild lines. So Steve gets the boot because the blade was a half inch too short.
Got to meet those parameters. Yeah. Unfortunately.
We're seeing maybe some more of that lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's happening.
For round 2, they had to make a stacked rubber and leather handle out of weight belts and gym mats.
That sounds like fun.
It had to include a pommel and a guard.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a very interesting one, because that material, I mean, I'm sure there's people that have made material out of that stuff before, but it's not easy to have to cut up a gym mat and then use those pieces.
No.
So, yeah, it stands to be interesting.
Yeah.
For Braxton, he started with his guard, and then as he was working on the handle, he struggled a little bit with the drill, and then ended up just moving on to the hammer and chisel method, and I think that worked a lot better. He was able to just cut right through it. And then as he's grinding the shape of his handle, he ground too much in a spot and had to fix it with another piece of leather and some glue. Yeah, and that was that. For Kyle, starts with the handle and then moves on to his guard, and he relies on the handle covering a delamination that he had found. And the judges more or less discuss how this is a bad plan.
Hey.
Well, you probably shouldn't hide it.
Well, okay. What are you going to do?
And he welds on his pommel. For Jake, he started by taking out the warp that the judges had mentioned. He uses the press to cut holes in the leather weight belt, which takes a long time, so he moves on to the bandsaw.
Did he make like a little tool?
Yeah, he made like a little jig tool or something to cut it with.
And it didn't work out. A little surprising, but yeah, I mean, that's...
You would think the press...
It would have been really cool if it could work, because he was just going to like just stamp it out and it was going to be awesome, but it didn't work out.
Anyway, he peens on the pommel, and then he had to put an edge on his blade with the last 5 minutes left. And during this... I don't recall, this was weeks ago now that this actually aired, so there was something that was going on where the judges were having premonitions or saying something that were like, well, if this is like this, it's going to end up having some problems later on, and they hint at it during round 2 before they get to the testing, so there's these little premonitions that come up, and it almost always ends up going exactly the way the judges say it. It's very interesting. For testing, they had a weight plate merciless baton strike 3 times by Ben Abbott.
Yeah.
Braxton had significant rolling with his, but otherwise it was an extremely attractive blade. For Kyle, the tang snapped in half on the second strike.
In half?
In half.
Oh, man. That's bad.
That was bad news. Yeah. So that's a catastrophic failure, which means...
So Jake only has to make it past
survive
2
strikes. Yeah. And he's tested. He held up the 2 strikes.
Nice. Okay.
Kyle ends up getting the boot because of catastrophic failure. And we move on to the final round.
The Nagamaki.
Yes.
So the Nagamaki reached peak use during the Muromachi era. This long 2-handed weapon assisted samurai warriors in feudal Japan for 4 centuries. Its slightly curved blade, nearing 30 inches in length and equally long handle, gave users complete, precise control, making it a highly effective and lethal slicing weapon, ideal for infantry warriors combating horsemen. Blade must be between 31 and 33 inches, have a single edge, be at least 1.5 inches wide at the habaki, and tapered to the tip. Must also have a Suba-style guard and a traditional wrap handle.
That's a lot of stuff, man. Yeah. That's a lot of stuff.
More than I could handle.
For sure.
Yeah.
I saw some comments after this one came out about how it's just another type of samurai sword. I mean, they're similar looking in some regards, but there's always differences in how you make some of these weapons, and the size of a handle the length of a blade for something that specific is...
Well, I mean, what do you want? It's still a challenge, and yeah, I mean, we're gonna run out of weapons eventually.
Well, yeah, of course.
You know,
until the next episode, and then they go.
Yeah, then you find something completely different, and yeah. So
anyway, we move on. For Braxton, day 1, he started by drawing it out to the correct length, his billet, and then on day 2 he quenches, picks up a warp, and then has to reduce the curve of the blade. Okay. Let me say that again. He picks up a warp, and then even though he had been like trying to get the curve proper, he ended up reducing the curve of the blade to under the parameters because of the way it worked.
Right.
So then he quenches again, and it turns out okay, so he can start work on the habaki. For day 3, he was working on the suba. He mills a pattern into it to reduce some of the weight, and they didn't show anything for his day 4.
Right.
For Jake, day 1, he was working with a piece of W2 that was just about the right length, so it doesn't need to make it much longer. Day 2 was his quench day, and it was looking very good. So he takes it outside to test it, and see what he can do with it. And boom, breaks off about 6 inches from his blade. I forget what he hit it on.
Oh, I don't remember.
But
why would you do that right after the quench? It's brittle, isn't it? I mean, was it right after, or was it just the same day?
They didn't show the normalizing. If he did the normalizing to it, that would be when you test it, because that's at least it's going to be stronger. But if it was before then, that could be a problem, because that would be potentially brittle.
Anyway, it sucked.
Anyway, yeah, it did. So he started over on day 3. They didn't show it, but he forges a new blade, quenches, and makes the habaki all on day 3. And then on day 4, he was working on the suba and the handle and did his fit and finish.
Right. So they come in for testing, kill test, wild boar carcass assault, if you will.
Of course.
So for Braxton, it's able to slice super thin pieces off and cut the boar in half. It's definitely not boring. her.
Oh, Doug.
It's very good grip in the handle and very light. It will kill. For Jake, it slices but not as nicely. Does not cut through the spine of the boar. It is sharp and overall will kill. Moving on to the strength test. Dave Baker chopping 6 times onto bamboo. For Braxton, and bamboo did nothing to the blade, and it's as sharp as when Dave picked it up. For Jake, it's just as sharp as when it started. The handle is a little wide, however. For the sharpness test, they're going against tatami, melons, and sandbags. So for Braxton, there's no issues at all. It will cut. For Jake, it's razor sharp, and it will cut. So it's kind of close.
It is close.
It's pretty close.
There's been a lot of catastrophic failures in the last, this past season. Yeah. So when it comes down to something like this, it's kind of interesting to see. It's hard to tell who's going to win this one.
Yeah. However, Braxton wins. It came down to the finest of points. The blade wasn't quite as finished, and the judges had a slight preference for Braxton's handle.
So that's it.
So you can see, I mean, they said his blade wasn't quite as finished.
Yeah.
But they like the handle a little bit more.
Right.
So there you go. So Braxton wins. Congratulations, Braxton.
And to everybody on the show.
Yeah.
That episode was good. It was a good episode. Yeah. So nice work. I wouldn't have to work with gym equipment if I could avoid it. So that was definitely a tough challenge. Every part of it, even the handles and everything, were all probably
they all
normal one.
They saw how hard it was to cut through that shit.
Yeah.
Like a weight belt and then a mat and... No, I wouldn't want to deal with that.
Stuff for weightlifting is meant to be heavy duty and hold up, so it makes it that much more difficult to work
we were
with.
Describing it to Jay Nielsen. He's like, that doesn't sound very fun.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right, well, that wraps it up for this episode, Season 6, Episode 15, the Nagamaki. Check us out on all the places.
Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. That's really the main places. Thanks to everybody who's followed us recently. This is being recorded after we get back from Blade Show. So thanks to all the people we met at Blade Show. It was an
great
incredible experience. A lot of really awesome people we got to hang out with and chat with this past weekend.
Yep.
And thanks for following us and checking everything out that we do, and we appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
And we will catch you in the next wrap-up.
Next time. Later.